Okay, so let's just dive right in. Our entire way of making things, using things, and then, well, getting rid of things, it's hitting a major wall. It's a system that was built for a different time, and frankly, it's just not working anymore. But here's the interesting part. Out of this crisis, something new is starting to take shape. A really powerful new model for industry that's being born from three huge trends all coming together at once.
So here's our game plan. We're going to trace this whole story from start to finish. We'll kick things off by really digging into what's wrong with the old, linear way of doing things. Then we'll explore three big, emerging ideas that are changing the game. And finally, we'll see how they all combine into this new vision for the future of industry, and ask the big question, what's it going to take to actually make it happen?
All right, first up, let's talk about the system we live in right now. You know, the one that powered the last industrial revolution. The thing is, its foundations are seriously cracking, and we're starting to see its limits in a really big way.
And just look at this number. This really puts the scale of the problem into perspective. Every single year, we dig up over 100 billion tons of raw materials from the Earth, and more than 90% of it, 90%, is just wasted after we use it one time. This is what we call the take, make, dispose linear economy. It's basically a one-way ticket from the planet to the garbage dump.
Now, this old way of doing things creates two huge fundamental problems. First, obviously, is the insane amount of waste and pollution it creates by design. But the second problem is that it depends completely on these gigantic, centralized factories and these incredibly fragile supply chains that stretch all over the world. So we've basically built a system that's not just unsustainable, it's also super vulnerable to any kind of disruption.
So what's the alternative? How do we start to fix this? Well, the first big piece of the puzzle involves a totally radical idea, rethinking the whole concept of waste. It's a vision that's come to be known as the circular economy.
You know, the core idea here is actually pretty simple, but it's also incredibly profound. What if we could have economic growth without constantly using up the planet's finite resources? That's exactly what the circular economy is all about. It's a whole new way of thinking, designed to tackle huge problems like climate change and pollution by creating a world where materials are never just thrown away.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. It all boils down to three main principles. First, you design waste and pollution out of the system from day one. So this isn't just about getting better at recycling, it's about making things that are built to last, that are easy to repair, that can be remanufactured. Second, you keep products and materials flowing through the economy, always trying to keep them at their highest possible value. And third, and this is the really mind-blowing part, the system actually helps to regenerate nature instead of just taking from it.
Okay, so that idea tackles the waste problem. But what about those super fragile, globe-spanning supply chains we talked about? Well, that brings us to the second massive trend that's changing everything: distributed manufacturing.
Distributed manufacturing basically flips the old model completely on its head. So instead of having one single massive factory halfway around the world, you have a whole network of smaller, local production hubs. I love the motto here: design globally, produce locally. The idea is to bring manufacturing way closer to the end customer, which makes the whole system more resilient and way more responsive to what people actually need.
Let's put these two head-to-head. It makes it really clear. The old centralized way, yeah, it's fantastic for economies of scale. You know, cranking out millions of the exact same thing for cheap. But it's slow, it's inflexible, and if one thing goes wrong, the whole network can just shut down. Now, the decentralized model, it trades some of that massive scale for unbelievable flexibility and resilience. If one facility has a problem, the network can just reroute the work. This means faster delivery and products that are actually better suited for local communities.
Okay, so we have a vision for a system that's circular and it's localized. Sounds pretty great, right? But there's a huge catch. This creates a massive coordination problem. I mean, how on earth do you manage a global network of producers, recyclers, and designers when there's no single boss calling all the shots? And that brings us to our third and final piece of the puzzle.
This, right here, is the crucial question. It's the multi-trillion-dollar question, really. If you don't have a big corporation or government in charge, how do you get thousands of independent people and companies all over the world to trust each other, to play by the rules, and to work together? Well, the answer just might be found in a new, emerging layer of the internet, what people are calling Web 3.
Now, at the very heart of this Web 3 coordination layer is this wild concept called a DAO. It stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. The easiest way to think about it is like a company that runs itself on code. It's an organization that's owned and managed by its members, where all the rules are written into the software and decisions get made automatically, without needing layers of traditional management.
Okay, I know this diagram looks a little intimidating, but the core idea is actually pretty straightforward. Let's just walk through it. So let's say a member, maybe a product designer, proposes a new rule for the whole network. For instance, a new quality standard for using recycled materials. The whole community then gets to vote on that proposal. If it passes, that new rule is automatically written into the system's code using something called a smart contract, which is really just a fancy if-then statement. This can then trigger all sorts of actions across the entire network, all without a single manager needing to approve anything. It's basically governance by software, making sure everyone plays by the same transparent rules.
But why would people even bother to participate in this? What's in it for them? That's where something called tokenomics comes in. This is the economic engine that actually powers the whole network. By creating these digital tokens, you can design a whole system of financial incentives. For example, you could create a repair coin that automatically pays a designer a tiny fee every single time one of their easy-to-fix products gets repaired instead of being thrown out. It's the money layer that makes sure everyone's personal self-interest is aligned with the overall health of the circular network.
So, let's put it all together. We have the philosophy of the circular economy, right? Then we have the resilient structure of distributed manufacturing. And finally, we have the incredible coordination power of Web3. When you fuse these three things together, you start to get a glimpse of a brand new type of industrial model.
And this chart, this brilliantly explains why all of this is happening right now. This model shows how big external shocks, think about the pandemic completely breaking supply chains, put a ton of pressure on the old way of doing things, the incumbent regime. That pressure cracks open a window of opportunity for new ideas, these niche innovations, to finally break through into the mainstream. We are living in one of those moments. The old linear, centralized system is under more strain than ever, and a new emerging system is ready to take its place.
And we call this new emerging model Circlenomic. It's a system that is designed from the ground up to be regenerative because it's circular. It's designed to be resilient because it's local and distributed. And it's designed to be fair and efficient through this decentralized, autonomous coordination. It's a possible blueprint for an industry that actually works with nature, not against it, and one that empowers local communities, not just massive corporations.